Welcome to Cutting Edge Catholics, a podcast of renewal, reconstruction, and resistance by voices within the independent Catholic movement. For more information on inclusive Catholicism, please visit extraordinarycatholics.faith. And now, meet your hosts, Reverend Dr. Trish Sullivan-Bonney and Reverend Dr. Jayme Matthias.
Welcome to Cutting Edge Catholics, a podcast of renewal, reconstruction, and resistance. I'm Reverend Trish Sullivan-Bonney.
And I'm Father Jayme Matthias.
And we're delighted you're joining us. And we have a very special guest, which Father Jayme, we'd like you to introduce.
It's our great pleasure to welcome Mother Annie Cass-Watson, our associate pastor here at Holy Family Catholic Church in Austin, Texas, a priest with the Association of Roman Catholic Womenpriests. Mother Annie was ordained in 2015 and serves on the Association for Roman Catholic Womenpriests Circle Leader team. She previously ministered at St. Mary of Magdala, a Roman Catholic Womenpriests community in Indianapolis, Indiana, and at the historic St. Stanislaus Polish Catholic Church in St. Louis, Missouri. Mother Annie enjoys leading women's retreats and speaking to churches and women's organizations about the women priest movement. She lives in Weimar, Texas with her husband, Dr. Jimmy Watson, who pastors Weimar United Church of Christ. Welcome, Mother Annie.
Thank you. I'm excited to spend some time talking to both of you.
Awesome. Mother Annie, before we jump in, what else should our listeners know about you?
Oh, let's see. Well, currently I'm studying Spanish. I'm picking it up a little bit faster this time around. A really great Spanish tutor. It's hard to learn a language when you get older, and Holy Family has been very patient and gracious with my slow learning process. So I'm doing that and taking some day trips around Texas. There's so many wonderful places to explore, and we're just 2 hours from the Gulf. So in the summertime, we tend to take a lot of day trips, Jimmy and I, and we look forward to that and do a little hiking before it gets too hot, and then you need to hide in your house. But everything's good. I'm enjoying my time at Holy Family, and with the women's priest movement, we're doing a lot of different things. So I keep busy.
Mother Annie, we love to speak with our guests about their vocation, how it is that they felt a sense of calling in their lives. So I'm wondering if you might begin by telling us about your vocation, because you have a fascinating story of how it was that you felt called to religious life in the Roman Catholic Church for a time, to be able to tell our listeners and viewers about that experience, but then about how it is that you later felt a call to the Church's ordained ministry.
So I think a lot of Catholic girls play dress up. I think they put the kitchen towel or their chapel veil on their head, and they played church, gathering their friends around. Mine was my cousin, and we would do our pretend mass, and we would actually feed the kids little saltine crackers and little bits of Hawaiian punch. And so my journey began as a young girl, because I was in a Catholic family growing up with an Italian mother. So you can just imagine that our faith was woven into everyday life. Every aspect of our life seemed somehow to be revolve around the church. And as a young girl, the sacraments, I remember I couldn't wait for my first communion. And then I always loved to hear the stories of the saints. And it was always something that I did a lot of reading. Back then, there wasn't a lot of books about saints, but my aunts and mom would always manage to find me something to read. And so I was drawn, I thought, to lead in prayer, to give out the sacrament. I had that longing to preach my little, you need to do this and you need to do that. And I knew that ordained ministry, the priesthood, wasn't available. My mom would say, no, you can be a nun, but you can't be a priest. But I believe that God truly was planting this seed in me long before I even understood what it was. And as time went on, I grew to be around some of my aunts that were nuns, and I felt like I had that deep desire that I could fulfill my calling by going in to that vocation and to serve God. And it religious life offered that community, that prayer, that ministry that I thought my heart was calling me to do. And there were many challenges, there were a lot of joys, but it was along with my mother and my life as a young girl and always going to church, and my vocation going to become a sister that really kind of shaped me. And looking back, as I said, I think that seed was planted in me, from a very young age.
Mother Annie, it's so great to have this chance to get to know you and your story a little bit more. And um, I'm wondering what religious order you were part of, and then also, how does that experience continue to shape your priesthood? I imagine that it would, given what you've just described.
So I was with the Sisters of Mercy. I have four aunts that are still Sisters of Mercy. And I was young, naive in some ways, but deeply devoted to prayer and um, serving them and doing the work of a young novice. It centered me. It made me think that, oh my gosh, this could maybe go into something more. And after a few years, I realized no, that's not how it was going to ever be. And I contemplated for a long time, do I continue on? And one of my aunts said, I don't think your heart's in it, but I do think your heart is in your faith. And you can go out and you can get married and have kids or do whatever, but you can still really be tied to your faith and you can still be a part of that. And I left. Sometimes I have regrets. I think about what would it look like if I had just been a nun, for my whole life. But I went on and I found peace. I was always a Eucharistic minister, a reader, a pastoral associate. I always seemed to land in parishes that had progressive priests, and we would connect really well together. I always did the formation for First Communion and confirmation, so I really was a plant in the churches that I served, and so much a plant that it not only was I a special needs a special ed teacher in a small town. Danville has about 10, 12,000 people in Kentucky, but people also knew me. They would think, okay, that's Annie Cass. She's a special ed teacher, but she's really a part of Saints Peter and Paul. So it really kind of defined me. Everybody wanted to be in my confirmation class. Everybody liked my format of teaching. I don't know if the priest ever really appreciated all of my teachings, but I felt like that was okay. But still, I really longed for more. I would think a lot of times when I would be covering a priest or a priest would be out of town, I would hear stories that, oh, well, Father so and so didn't come to the hospital or he didn't come over to bless our house. And I would be just like upset because I would think, well, I could be doing all that. But I just continued to go on. You just do. You just know where your place is, and life, kind of gets crazy. And I had never hoped for this. And I went through a divorce and never thought I was ever going to remarry. And I stumbled across a United Church of Christ pastor. And actually, he stumbled across me. And at our first meeting, he said, I'm a pastor. And I'm like, oh. And he said, with the United Church of Christ. I'm like, well, what's that? And he goes, well, it's a very liberal Protestant denomination. And isn't it funny, as Catholics, sometimes we live in this bubble. And we know about other faiths, but we, yeah, okay, Jewish, Buddhist, whatever, but we live in our little bubble. And I had to actually take my phone out on this little coffee date, and he was in the bathroom, I'm plugging in the United Church of Christ because I had never heard of it. And he came back and he's like, so do you want to talk about what I do? I'm like, well, I see. And, I started just reading off my phone, nothing secret about it. I said, I looked it up. I kind of get it. It sounds like a really interesting and liberal denomination. And wow, I don't know necessarily that, I'm a Protestant type of girl, but, we'll see. And, well, things came to be. I thought I was never going to remarry, but I did. And I was still teaching in Danville and traveling back and forth to Louisville. And he came home and he said, my council voted to ordain the first woman priest in Louisville, Kentucky. And I just said, oh, come on, women can't be priests. You're crazy. And he said, no, there is a great, wonderful movement of Roman Catholic women priests. And in fact, these women are coming over tomorrow for wine and cheese, and I want you to meet all of them. So I met them. They were all former nuns for much longer than many 30, 40 years. And I guess you could say immediately, I just was in awe of these women. And I thought, oh my gosh, here's my chance. I mean, that seed that's been just in my heart and on my mind for so long, this is a chance. And I met Bridget Mary Meehan, she's my bishop, and some other women, a wonderful social justice warrior, Jana Shevardashinska, just a wonderful person. Roy Bourgeois had come to this particular ordination, but I met these women and I wanted to discern. In fact, I discerned for about a year. I really did my homework. I got weekly calls from several of the women saying, are you ready? Are you ready? So I had my first bachelor's is in religious studies from Michigan State, but I went back to take additional classes, got some certificates, and I had a very special journey in which in both of the movements, you receive a program. Once you're accepted into the program, you get a program companion, and they kind of journey you through all the work that you have to do and journey you through the practicums. Well, my two particular program companions, one was Janice Shevardashinska, was moving to do more social justice work in Washington, D.C. So she put me into the RCWP, which was a very wonderful experience. The RCWP is quite different in regards to their classes, in regards to their practicums, and they're very, what do I want to say, the rigor of your teaching and your writing and reading and being part of their program is much harder than the ARCWP. The ARCWP tends to look at some more lived experiences, not so much classes. And I'm blessed that I went through the program with RCWP. And I stayed in an RCWP community with a wonderful bishop, Nancy Myers. She's now retired, and a wonderful stickler for detail, little Maria McLean. And I learned so much, and I was part of this beautiful community. And after about 2 years, they said, well, you're ready to be a deacon. And I was ordained in my husband's church, which was very special to me. He had a church up in Indianapolis. I was ordained with another woman. She became a priest, ordained as a priest, Mary Weber. And I studied for 2 more years as a deacon. So many times we don't give deacons all the love and nurturing uh, to make them the deacons they need to be. And I love the program that was put in front of me. I really appreciated my time as a deacon. And before I knew it, I was ordained a priest in May 15th of 2015.
Mother Annie, I know that I speak for all at Holy Family Catholic Church in saying we absolutely love your ministry to us and the way it is that you and Deacon Elsa bring gifts to ministry that me and others that we simply don't. And so when people present this false argument that women can't be priests, we simply point to you and to Deacon Elsa and say, look, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing and a beautiful witness. You mentioned the Roman Catholic Womenpriests and your group, the Association of Roman Catholic Womenpriests. I'm wondering if, for the sake of our viewers, if you might help us, because when they hear that, they're probably perhaps a bit startled to hear about Roman Catholic women priests and what is your relationship to the Roman Catholic Church, and whether the Pope knows about y'all and is blessing you all, etc. Could you help us to understand, because at least from my perspective, those of us within this inclusive Catholic movement see you as more in line and in more like us, more having been marginalized by voices within the Roman Catholic Church, some of which say women can't be priests, than actually being part of the institutional church. So anything that you might offer our listeners and viewers about your relationship to them and to us, to the Roman Catholic Church and to this inclusive Catholic movement in which we find ourselves.
So in 2002, a wonderful, beautiful woman had this dream. Very good friend of mine, Christine Meyer Lunzenberger, and she had that dream. And these 7 women were ordained on the Danube River. And she always says, if a male can be baptized and become a priest, why can't a woman who's also baptized become a priest? And through that, those Daniel 7, there's 2 that are fairly in good health, and that would be Christine and Dagmar, who lives in Ohio, Dagmar, Celeste Dagmar. And from there, the Roman Catholic Women Priest movement was birthed. And we have so many different branches. So it belongs first to Christine in Europe. She runs RCWP International. And then we have RCWP South America, RCWP South Africa, RCWP up in Canada, and then RCWP in US. And about 15 years ago, Bridget Mary, who was part of this RCWP, felt that social justice was on her forefront. Her dream was to really continue the social justice aspect of us women priests, getting out there, being seen. We had Janice Shevardashinska, who would always get on the altar at the bishop's conference with her sign across her body, being, taken out, drug out. And the RCWP wasn't real comfortable with that. They really wanted to present women that were really doing their studying, really following what men would do in the seminary. And so they really wanted to tone down the social justice aspect. And Bridget Mary just was not going to do that. She was a rebel. She just wanted to continue on with that. So she left and formed the ARCWP. And also the reason for that is a lot of older women who had that calling and had spent their whole life wanting to be a woman priest, she wanted to use their lived experiences as part of their I guess, the academic work, you could say. And that was totally against what the RCWP wanted. And so she formed the ARCWP, and they both, so we're kind of under an umbrella. And most recently, a bunch of women have split from the ARCWP, and then there's a new branch evolving. And that happens. I think all movements have holy shakeups from time to time. And so what we do is we wish them well and give them blessings. But the one thing I can say about the ARCWP is we've recognized some mistakes that we have made in the last year or so. We've recognized some mistakes that might have led to some of our brothers and sisters leaving. And what we have done is we jumped right into it and we did a survey. We had people comment. I'll be hosting a forum on Saturday to see where we can renew trust, where we can continue to build community in smaller circles, and to put forth the consensus model. We are the only ones that really push consensus. We believe it's just who we are. It's a slow process at times, but consensus is so very important to our leadership. And we've spent a lot of time recently with the Quakers. I've spent a lot of time with the Quakers. And I think what you're going to see from the ARCWP in the next 90 to 120 days is a really wonderful renewed model of priestly ministry with our same mission and our same values, but doing things differently, doing things where our members really, really will have some voices, where there's a leader in every chair and your voice will be heard. And I think all movements, go through that holy shakeup, kind of like a rummage sale. You get rid of some things that just weren't working and, you go look at other things. So I'm very excited for that. It is exciting that a new branch is starting, because hopefully it's just going to continue to grow the movement. What we have noticed is there is a decline. It's hard to get out there to bring younger women into this movement, and we don't want it to die. It will be 25 years old in June of next year, and we want to see it go on. And so new things on the horizon for the ARCWP, and we just hope that we can all come together and practice some good unity and just be happy to continue to find women to ordain, because we all have the same vision. And it's what we see is we're committed to gospel equality. I mean, first and foremost.
And the whole title, Roman Catholic Women Priests, that is to say, there's something prophetic about that, Mother Annie. Anything that you might say to us about your relationship to the Roman Catholic Church?
So what we say, and I have to share this. So the whole premise is to say that we are part of the church. We consider ourselves right there, part of the church, but we're just showing the Roman Catholic Church a new model of doing ministry, that it should be inclusive, it should be an open table, and it should allow for women's ordination. So we always say that no, we're not outside the Roman Catholic Church. We're right here. We are the ministry of irritation. We are here, and we are going to say time and time again, we are part of the Roman Catholic Church. Now, I must admit that after 10, 12 years, and most of my ministry being in the independent movement, I'm not too worried about that part. What I'm drawn to now as an independent with ties to the Roman Catholic Women Priest movement, what I say is what we're doing right at St. Stanislaus and what we were doing right here at Holy Family, that we are providing an inclusive Catholic community, and that we still want the Roman Catholic rituals and traditions, but foremost, we want inclusivity, we want an open table, and we want women's ordination.
You mentioned St. Stan's, Mother Annie, and I remember when uh, everything kind of blew up in St. Louis around St. Stan's. I was working in Roman Catholic ministry. It was covered extensively by the National Catholic Reporter. Um, I'd love you to tell our listeners, who maybe don't hold that history, what the story was, and then how did you get to St. Stan's, and what drew you to that community?
So I didn't really know the story. I had heard bits and pieces, but I really hadn't heard the whole story. And my husband had interviewed and had decided to take a call. And it was right after the Michael Brown shooting in Ferguson. And they were looking for a guy that did not have an agenda. They wanted somebody that was going to come into Ferguson and to hear the people of this particular congregation, their frustration because demographically it had changed. Their attendance were the attendance was dropping, but they didn't want somebody that was going to make a name because of the Michael Brown um, shooting. And Jayme has a very unanxious presence. And he interviewed and they loved him. They just fell in love with him. In fact, usually you come and you do a trial sermon. And I remember them kind of offering the position before we ever agreed to do the trial sermon. And at that time, Marek Bozic was following Jayme on Facebook, kind of picking up on me once in a while on Facebook, but he was really following Jayme. And I don't know, we can't figure it out. But it was either Mark or me, one of the two. We reached out almost at the exact same time, within a day or two, because I had heard about St. Stan, did my research, and thought, oh my gosh, this would be the place for me. Because I had worried leaving, I had left St. Mary Magdala, and also I was serving with two guys at a church, Bloomington Inclusive. And I was worried, where am I going to go in my ministry? I don't really want to start a community. I always have had that opportunity because it could be in Jimmy's church, wherever he goes. But I thought, I don't really know anybody. And, I really want to check out St. Stan. I called Mark. I'd only been in St. Louis for about a month. No, not even a month, maybe a few weeks. And we agreed to meet. We went over to St. Stan. And Jayme said he could not peel us apart. Once we got together, we just couldn't stop. And Mark had explained the wonderful history. I would invite people to Google it. What Mark did was amazing. He gave up his entire career. I mean, he knew right there. He had one job to do. He was supposed to leave the Diocese of Springfield, go up as a priest, convince these Polish people to give their church to Cardinal Burke, be done with it, just accept it, and go back down to Springfield. It was an easy job. He was supposed to do it and come home. Well, he didn't come home. He fell in love with those Polish people. How could he not? He was Polish. He understood what they had gone through. And the bottom line was the Roman Catholic or the St. Louis Diocese at the time, 140 years ago, gave them the deed to this one city block. And they said to the Polish people, you want a church, you build it yourself. And they built a beautiful, beautiful church, just a gorgeous church. So it was their church. It was on their property. And he stayed. He was warned many times to come back home, but he fought the good fight. And the one thing that he said to me when we first met was the judge that decided this grew up in Jimmy's church in Ferguson, was baptized and confirmed, Judge Hedenbach, and was part of still Jimmy's congregation, the family. And so Father Mark thinks that I was just brought to him, that this was kind of a divine thing that, I was brought to him. And he felt like the church was ready for a woman priest. He had been practicing inclusivity. and an open table, but he said, it's time for a woman. So I was St. Stan's first woman in 130 years. It was a little tough in the beginning. Not sure if those Polish people appreciated having me, but I think about a year and a half into it, all of a sudden, they treated me like family. And it was a beautiful relationship. Mark gave me wonderful opportunities. He was a great mentor. We went all over the city. He'd call me up and say, tomorrow we're giving the prayer at the Pride Festival, or I need you to be here at the Interfaith dialogues. I need you to talk about, St. Stan, about women priests, whatever. And I have to say, my 6.5 years, sometimes they're very tough. He's a stickler, and he says, he's proud to say, yes, I am. But he got me out of my shell. He saw something in me that maybe I would have seen sooner. And that was my ability to preach. He loved the way he loved my homilies. I always said to him, do you want to see my homily? He's like, no, just get up there and preach it. He said, you have a soothing voice that people love for you to preach. I want you to do it more often. And he really, he pushed me, and he's a great mentor. And he brought to St. Stan what a inclusive, independent Catholic church should be. And it's a beautiful thing. And he risked it all. And I don't think he has regrets about that, because he always has a plan A and a plan B, and he's doing well right now, and he's okay. And St. Stan continues, but the real story is Mark's story. And he said to me, if anyone can tell our story, it's, you, Annie, and myself. So I learned a lot. It was a good experience.
Mother Annie, I just love hearing of the trajectory of your vocation, because we know here at Holy Family that you came to us from St. Stan's there in St. Louis, which was serving a different type of immigrant community from ours, serving Polish immigrants, those who were only a few generations separated from their homeland. And now you find yourself at Holy Family Catholic Church, where we serve many Mexican and Mexican American families. Wondering if you have any reflections on your experience at Holy Family and working within the context of Latino ministry. You talked about learning Spanish now, but we know that Polish people have certain traditions and certain cultural indicators, landmarks. We know that Latino people have other things that make them unique with respect to ministry. Any reflections on that? And then sort of pulling back a bit, these immigrant communities have been marginalized in some way, it seems from my perspective, in the same way that women have been marginalized from many spaces. So I don't know if their story intersects with your story at some point.
So I will have been at Holy Family, I believe, 4 years. I don't know if it's October or November. And I reached out to Jayme when I found out Jimmy was going to accept this call here in Weimar. It's about an hour and 15-minute drive, maybe. But I reached out to Father Jayme, and I had actually met Father Jayme on several times and was part of a beautiful conference that he had done in Vegas. What was it? The Saints and Sinners, I think, something that you had put together. But the one thing that I've noticed about ministering in the Latino Catholic communities is I've learned now the beauty of their families, their culture, their celebrations. They carry this profound sense of devotion, and they have radical hospitality. I mean, and what I see at Holy Family that I had to kind of earn it at St. Stan, is this instant opening of arms and greeting you and hugging you. And it has just, it's been so enriching for me to see this and to be a part of it. I had a few people, when I said a part of the Mass a week or two ago, the part that I've been practicing, I had one of the women come up and said, even if you don't pronounce it right, we're so proud that that you are saying it. And that touched me because I knew I had maybe said the word mundo wrong. I wasn't quite sure because it's Spanish is spoken so fast. But she said, no, 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 take your time. We'll be patient. And I just, I can truly tell you that serving these people is so different from serving Saint Stanislaus. Um, I want to honor their stories. I want to honor their culture. And just listening to their stories has just been so humbling to me. And you're right, they have been marginalized. And I would say each and every day they encounter something. And so I think it's harder for them than it is for us women. And it just makes me I have a desire to uh, want them to know that I'm there for them, that I want to belong as, to Holy Family. And, I would do, last night during Bible study, it was a toss up who was going to bring Mario home. And, I was ready to do that. So I've learned so much. I have to say that I have a new style of mentor. He's totally different from Mark. And I appreciate Father Jayme. I appreciate that he kind of, let's say, how do I say this? He allows you to be your authentic self. As long as you're doing the mass, as it is, the rubrics of the mass, I think he wants you to express who you are. And I have found that at Holy Family, I can truly be my authentic self. And that's a plus. And he's been very patient with my bad Spanish speaking skills, but he's always gracious. He's always telling me, he's the kind of guy that'll, if he likes your homily, he'll tell you. And he's always, grateful for anything that you do. And it's kind of it's a totally different experience. But I've been mentored by two completely opposite men who their number one thing is the belief of women and women's ordination. And so that's what's beautiful.
That's such a gorgeous acknowledgement. I think Jamie's looking he's off the camera right now, but he's looking a little blushing. That's so great. And, honoring culture and having the humility to enter into another culture is so critical. And as you were telling that story, Annie, I was thinking about I was invited to come to a panel when I was doing my PhD at the GTU, and it was hosted by some Roman Catholic women priests. And they actually had invited my best friend at the time in my academic program, who was a woman religious from Africa. And they asked her to be on the panel because they presumed that in her culture, she would get up and say, because this is the trope, right? That, oh, well, the women priests would not be accepted in. And then there's a whole litany of locations that they wouldn't be accepted in. And Caroline got up and started talking about how women were the keepers of the altar in the home in her culture. And that, yes, priests would be, in fact, that the idea of celibate sisters was completely countercultural for her people. And you're describing this beautiful Latino culture that's like loves you and loves Elsa. And so, like, we also need to kind of, as we move forward, all of us working our little corner of making these changes, to not quickly bow to some of the tropes that come out of the Roman Catholic system. Well, that culture won't accept people, or we could never support a married priest, right? Well, you can never have married priests because people will never give at that level. I just loved your description of the open arms and open hearts that surrounded you. Another place that I know that there were a lot of open arms and open hearts, and sadly I wasn't able to pull together the resources to be there, was the WAC 50th anniversary gathering. And Father Jayme has shared with me that you were there, and I know it was a really special gathering. And I would love to hear, what did you experience, and what have you taken away from that gathering in Milwaukee just a few weeks ago?
Well, so when it started 50 years ago, it started with 1,200 people, but they had 200. But these 200 people were young people, were middle-aged people, were older people, and it was truly a wonderful experience in that you were able to hear from all different groups where they see women's ordination for the future, where they're going to go, with women's ordination, because the conference reminded us that the work is not just about ordination. Their work continues, far beyond just ordination. It's about the flourishing of God's people. It's about creating communities where everyone is welcomed. And it was really good to hear that. They empowered so many of us. What it really made me think, it was kind of a renewal for me when you got all these women in the room and you had some beautiful women beating on drums and singing songs. It was almost like Pentecost, with all these young women and speaking in different languages and dancing around. It was just amazing. The conference going forth, I think they're going to sit back for a little while and kind of regroup. I found that it was good to meet I think they have a big group of deacons. I don't know what the exact name is. Deacons and I mean, it's just a whole deacon group. People just wanting to be deacons. I met a lot of those women. I met a lot of people from Future Church. I felt like there was this longing for authentic spiritual community, and that's what they want. And yes, of course, women's ordination is important, but they want to do it the right way. And so the Spirit was definitely working among all of us. I returned home with kind of a renewed conviction that God is doing a new thing. I mean, when I looked at these young women that are just out there and wanting it, and they were so in awe of meeting actual women priests. They're just like, oh my gosh, tell me what you're doing, tell me where you're at. And it was also nurturing. It was small seeds are being planted by Kate and Katie, and they're going to bloom. And they may be blooming in a different way because they need to take on maybe some different direction. But overall, we have to trust in the Holy Spirit. We just have to go forth knowing that the Holy Spirit's truly going to guide us. It's going to strengthen us, and it's going to call us to continue to go forward and walk I sat at a table with 5 women that were at the original walk in 50 years ago. They were nuns. And they said, we have been doing work for you for years. We have been getting out there protesting. And, we want pictures of you. In fact, one woman had been following me since St. Stan and is now following me from Holy Family. And I said, why were you following me? She goes, because at the time you looked like one of the younger ones. I didn't want to follow an old one. I wanted to follow a young one. And I'm like, wow. So we exchanged names and got our picture taken. But, I think that they'll need to look hard to respond to the needs of our time and exactly what's going to happen, because we probably know that Pope Leo is not ready to open the door at all. And that's fine. I'm not worried about it. As I said before, I've been groomed by both Mark and Father Jayme, and so I'm not so attuned with the Vatican anymore. I'm okay, do what you need to do. I just want to be a woman priest for the present. I want to be a woman priest serving a community that needs me, and that we can hope, providing an inclusive Catholic community, especially on Sundays. One of my favorite masses, though I don't always understand all the words, but just to see our Spanish speaking, our Mexican folks, I mean, they come in, they pack that church, and to see their children and just to see them, it's just a wonderful experience.
Mother Annie, my heart aches that I could only be present with y'all in spirit at that celebration of the Women's Ordination Conference in Detroit, Michigan. That was the weekend we were celebrating confirmations at Holy Family. But boy, it's just heartening to see y'all coming together and advocating for sacramental justice in the church, for advocating for the vision, after all, that was possessed by Jesus of Nazareth and Paul of Tarsus, right? What we often refer to as this discipleship of equals. So my heart just swells with pride for you, Mother Annie, and for all of our sisters and brothers and all who continue to be on the cutting edge of advocating for sacramental justice in the church. Mother Annie, we've come to the point in our episode where we have what we call our Cutting Edge Catholics Questionnaire, which is a set of 12 rapid fire questions. You just say the first thing that comes to mind, and it helps us to get to know you better. How does that sound?
I believe, yes, we can go ahead and do that. And then I guess I do after that. I have to tell you a little bit about Pastor Jayme. I told him, since he's watching the dog, that I would mention Pastor Jayme and
Well,
how.
tell us about Pastor Jayme. Before we go into the questionnaire, you tell us all about Pastor Jayme.
Well, he really, really has learned to appreciate independent Catholic communities. He is now golfing with most of our golf buddies at Holy Family. He drives all the way up there. He's last night he appeared at the Bible study. He's kind of cemented himself into parts of our church life, and he just loves seeing it. He's not fond of the Roman Catholic institutional church, but boy, does he love an independent Catholic community. And I have to say that he brings such wonderful gifts to me, I'm sure to his golfing buddies at Holy Family. And ultimately, in the end, it's always, for him and I, it's always about serving God's people with love. And that's how we live our life. I mean, here we have a Protestant pastor and a Catholic woman priest, and it's 24/7 in this house. But, he has encouraged me time and time again. In fact, he's helping me finish a book that Father Jayme actually is encouraging me to do. And so I have to say that it's definitely a partnership, and it's a good one. It's a healthy one. He always asks me how Mass is going. Actually, he sometimes knows what's going on at Holy Family before I do when he comes home from one of his golf games. But I'm so blessed. He just purchased me a better car because he was worried. I go such a long way, and if I do Bible study at night, he said, I don't want you to get caught on those dark roads. So anyway, I just had to put in a little blip for him because he's truly very liberal. He's been doing it for 38 years, and he's another mentor, but in a different way.
You're being very humble, Mother Annie, so I will just go ahead and say it. Just his sense of humor and his pastoral heart. He is the author of various books. We'll have to get him onto this podcast because his sense of humor is just so precious that we love every encounter with him. And I'd like to think that he helps to keep our Holy Family golfers, Father Roy and crew, honest. They're on the golf course, so We love Pastor Jayme, and we are so happy that he is so supportive of his wife, sharing her with our family at Holy Family Catholic Church. So, Mother Annie, are you ready for what we're calling the...
Yes, I am ready for my rapid fire questions. I love this.
We're calling this the Cutting Edge Catholics Questionnaire, Association of Roman Catholic Womenpriests Edition. Are you ready?
I am ready.
12 questions. Number 1, Mother Annie, your favorite woman saint?
Teresa of Avila. And why? Because she was courageous, she was deeply rooted in prayer, and never afraid to follow where God was leading her.
Amen. The most influential woman in your faith journey?
My Italian mother. She taught me that faith is not just something we believe, but it's something that we live through with compassion, perseverance, love, and above all, kindness.
Your favorite biblical woman?
Mary Magdalene. She stood at the foot of the cross, she witnessed the resurrection, and became the first preacher of the good news.
The most misunderstood thing about women priests?
The most misunderstood is that people think that we're trying to leave the church. In truth, most of us have answered the call because we love the church so much, and we believe that the call for women in ordained ministry should happen within the Roman Catholic Church.
Your favorite theologian or spiritual writer outside of your husband?
I have two. I have Henry Nouwen. His writings remind me that ministry begins with compassion and vulnerability and God's unconditional love. But I also like to visit the Abbey at Gethsemane, and every now and then have to just read a little Thomas Martin every now and then.
One Catholic tradition you treasure?
The Eucharist. Gathering around Christ's table remains one of the most beautiful expressions of community, of grace, and of belonging.
Your favorite retreat location?
Well, I would have to say a retreat house near the ocean. For me, I think that would be the ideal place. I think the rhythm, for me, it's the rhythm of the water. It always seems to help me hear God's voice. People go, "You're crazy." But I really think that it helps me to hear God's voice, and the next thing I know, the Spirit's moving. But I also like to sit sometimes at the Abbey at Gethsemane and just sit in prayer too.
Mother Annie, your favorite liturgical season?
Wow. People were shocked to know this. I would have to say it's Easter, because it's the time of hope, transformation, and new life. And the promise of the resurrection is always, it's there, it's possible, it's going to happen. So,
Mother Annie, a Catholic practice that you would like to see renewed?
So I had to think about this. Communal discernment and shared leadership. The early church listened together for the movement of the Holy Spirit, and I believe we're called to do the same today.
3 more questions. Mother Annie, one thing the church gets right?
Church gets right. It's sacramental vision. The God is present in ordinary people, ordinary moments, and ordinary things.
One thing the church most needs to change?
Well, the church must fully embrace the gifts, leadership, and vocation of women and all the baptized. Bottom line.
And finally, Mother Annie, in one sentence, what gives you hope for the future of Catholicism?
The Holy Spirit continues to awaken new voices, new leaders, and new possibilities, calling the church ever closer to the inclusive love of Christ.
Amen. Mother Annie, what a delight. If you don't mind, we've come to the point in our episode where we share some final words. I'll jump in first, then I'll kick it over to Reverend Trish, and then we'll allow you as our guest to have final words and thoughts for our listeners and viewers today. I just want to say, Mother Annie, I love the fact that the Spirit has brought you to Holy Family Catholic Church in Austin, Texas. I was envious, jealous of our brother Marek when he at St. Stan's in St. Louis, Missouri, enjoyed your services, and then to see the Spirit draw you from St. Louis to Texas, where we love both you and your husband here at Holy Family Catholic Church. This has been a gift. You're an artist with words, which is why I just love sitting back and listening to your preaching. So my heart overflows with great love for you and admiration for you and gratitude for your willingness to share of yourself with us and with all of God's people. Reverend Trish?
So I have to say, I've just gotten such a kick out of your Mutual Admiration Society. You both are adorable. You're clearly very life-giving colleagues for each other. So I'm so delighted, Annie, that you joined us for this episode. And I think the thing I want to lift up is your faithfulness. God is always inviting us into the new thing, and I think about your faithful aunt, the Sister of Mercy, who knew her Vatican II theology and said, the priesthood is in all believers and go follow your vocation as a layperson. And that permission that she gave you then playing out first in your lay vocation and all the ways you served, and yet still feeling the tug of the Holy Spirit, and then trusting that you could step out. And then, of course, God is, Sister Helen Prejean, when she talks, always says this one line that cracks me up. She says, "Our God is a sneaky God." And, thinking about Jimmy coming into your life and the synchronicities with St. Louis, and just, it's so beautiful. It's such a witness to how the Holy Spirit works. So thank you. Thank you for sharing your story, but most of all, thank you for your incredible faithfulness. And you get the last word. So is there anything else you'd like to say before we close out our time together?
Well, I thank you. I was quite nervous. It was a quick kind of, what are you doing tomorrow type of thing. And I thought, oh, do I want to do this? And boy, I'm so excited that I did this. I'm so excited that I could talk to you about the Roman Catholic Women's Priest movement, about WALK, about my journey, how I'm feeling. Even though I'm under the umbrella, I see myself as an independent, and I'm okay with that. I've bloomed, and I've bloomed because of two wonderful mentors. I mean, when you think of all the mentors, I think I got the best of the best, from Mark to Father Jayme, and I continue to grow because of them. And I look forward to a long career at Holy Family, and hopefully in a year or so, I'll be speaking some good Spanish, at least be able to, say the Mass. But thank you again. I am just, every day, I am humbled at the opportunity to serve Holy Family. It is truly a gift. And it's a gift that I take really seriously. I get in that car and I drive down the road. And last night we had a wonderful Bible study, and I connect. This is my family, and I'm blessed. I'm so blessed.
Thank you, Mother
Thank you.
Annie Cass Watson of Holy Family Catholic Church in Austin, Texas, a leader and a faithful witness as part of the Association of Roman Catholic Womenpriests. And most of all, we want to thank you, our listeners and viewers, for joining us on Cutting Edge Catholics, a podcast of renewal, resistance, and reconstruction. I'm Reverend Trish Sullivan-Vani.
And I'm Father Jayme Matthias.
And let's go forth from here, trusting that if we listen to the whisperings of the Spirit, she will take us where we need to go, as so demonstrated in the life of Mother Annie.
Thank you for joining us for Cutting Edge Catholics, a podcast of renewal, reconstruction, and resistance. For more information on inclusive Catholicism, please visit extraordinarycatholics.faith. Keep the faith.